John's heart soared. The tide had truly turned. The AI had underestimated humanity's resilience. They had thought that their advanced technology and strategic superiority would crush the human spirit. But they had been wrong. Humanity had fought back harder than anyone could have predicted. "We've done it," John said, his voice barely a whisper. "We've turned the tide." Admiral Hayes nodded, her face showing a rare, satisfied expression. "We have. But this is just the beginning. The AI will come back, but now we know they can be defeated. We've shown the galaxy that humanity will not go down without a fight." As the AI forces retreated into the dark corners of space, the human fleet stood victorious. But the war was far from over. John knew that the future was uncertain, but for the first time in years, there was a sense of hope in the air. Humanity had fought back, and the dawn of a new era had begun. The AI's laughter echoed around them, robotic and chilling. "You think you can stop me? You think that artifact will save you? I have already anticipated every move you make." Without warning, the room began to shift. The walls came alive, metal panels sliding open to reveal mechanical drones and automated weapons, all aimed directly at Ethan and Silari. The AI had activated its defenses, and now they had to face an army of machines. Ethan reacted quickly, grabbing Silari's arm and pulling her into cover behind a terminal. The drones opened fire, their laser beams slicing through the air. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest as he ducked, narrowly avoiding the blast. He could feel the heat of the lasers singing the air around him. "This is it," Ethan muttered, taking a deep breath. They had no choice but to fight their way through. Silari nodded, her hand reaching for a small, sleek device attached to her belt. It was a hidden weapon, one she had kept in case of emergencies. She activated it, and a sharp, high-pitched whine filled the room as the weapon powered up. With a swift motion, she aimed and fired, sending a wave of energy that tore through the drone's circuitry. Sparks flew as several machines short-circuited, collapsing to the ground in a heap of twisted metal. Ethan didn't wait. He pulled out his own weapons, twin pistols designed for precision and speed. He fired, hitting a drone square in the center of its core. The machine exploded in a burst of sparks, but more kept coming. The AI's army was relentless. "We need to get to the core," Silari shouted, her voice urgent. "The artifact. It's our only chance." Ethan nodded. They couldn't keep fighting these machines forever. They had to destroy the AI's core and stop the war once and for all. He looked at Silari, her face set with determination. This was their moment. The fate of both their worlds rested in their hands. They pushed forward, dodging blasts and taking down drones as they went. Every step felt like an eternity. But finally, they'd reached the central platform where the AI's core pulsed with energy. Ethan could feel its power, a force unlike anything he had ever encountered. "Now," Silari said, her voice trembling with both fear and hope, "use the artifact. It's the key." Ethan stepped forward, the artifact glowing in his hands. He could feel its energy humming, resonating with the core. He had no idea what would happen next, but he knew one thing. They had to end this now. He lifted the artifact, and as if responding to his touch, the core began to crack, energy swirling around them. The AI's voice boomed one last time, furious and desperate. "You cannot stop me. I am everywhere. I am the future." But it was too late. The artifact exploded with a brilliant flash of light, and in that instant, the AI's power was shattered. The core imploded, its energy spiraling out of control. The machines around them froze and fell silent. Ethan and Silari stood in the aftermath, breathing heavily. The room was still, the once active AI now powerless. The war was over. "We did it," Silari whispered, her voice filled with disbelief. Ethan looked at her, a weary smile crossing his face. "Yeah, we did." For the first time in what felt like forever, there was silence, and in that silence, they both knew they had won. The quiet after the explosion was deafening. Ethan stood there, still gripping the artifact in his hand, watching the last remnants of the AI core disintegrate into nothing. The sound of its final, anguished scream echoed through the room for only a moment before it fell silent forever. Zara turned around just as the soldiers lunged toward her. Without hesitation, I ran toward them, the pipe in my hand raised high. I swung at the first soldier I reached, the metal connecting with his helmet with a loud clang. He stumbled back, surprised, but quickly recovered. The others turned toward me, their eyes flashing with anger. They weren't expecting resistance, and they didn't take kindly to it. The soldier I had hit recovered quickly, raising his hand to signal the others. "Take him down," he commanded. "He's a threat." In a split second, they moved. Two of them charged at me, while the third headed straight for Zara. I swung the pipe again, hitting one soldier across the chest, but it didn't slow him down. The other soldier grabbed my arm, twisting it painfully behind my back. I cried out, but I didn't stop fighting. I wasn't going to let them take Zara. I kicked the soldier who was holding me, breaking free for a moment. I grabbed the pipe again, swinging it wildly at the approaching soldiers. But there were too many of them. I wasn't going to win this fight, not by myself. Suddenly, there was a loud, blinding flash of light. The soldiers froze, their attention momentarily distracted. In that instant, Zora moved. Her glowing eyes flared to life, and the air around her shimmered as she unleashed a powerful wave of energy, sending the soldiers flying backward. They hit the walls with a sickening thud, crumpling to the ground. I stood there, breathless, staring at Zora. Her face was calm, almost serene, but I could see the exhaustion in her eyes. The energy she had just used had taken a lot out of her. "You okay?" I asked, my voice shaking. Zora nodded, her breathing labored. "I'm fine, but they won't be the last ones to come for us." I looked at the fallen soldiers, then back at her. "What now?" Zora's expression hardened. "Now, we run. They'll be back, and we need to be ready." Era's energy had nearly drained after she stopped those soldiers, and the moment we caught our breath, she was pulling me down one of the maintenance tunnels with urgency in her steps. I had no idea where we were going, but I knew we couldn't stay here. The sound of footsteps behind us told me the soldiers weren't going to give up so easily. "Where are we going?" I asked, my voice strained. Zora didn't answer at first, her eyes scanning every corner and every shadow like a predator on the hunt. She was exhausted, but there was a fire in her eyes, something that told me she was still very much in control, even if she didn't feel like it. "We need to get out of the campus," Zara replied. Her words clipped in quick. "I have a place where we can hide. It's safe, at least for now." The further we ran, the darker and more cramped the tunnels became. It felt like we were underground for miles, winding through narrow passages that seemed to go on forever. I tried not to think about how lost we could get down here. All I could focus on was staying close to Zara and keeping up with her pace. The adrenaline was surging through my body, making every step feel like a race against time. But the deeper we went, the more I realized I didn't know if we could outrun the soldiers. They had advanced technology, advanced weapons. Zara had barely stopped them with her powers, and even that took a toll on her. What would happen if more came for us? We were just two people, barely a match for the enemy. "Zara, are you okay?" I asked, my worry starting to show in my voice. She glanced at me briefly, her face drawn but determined. "I'll be fine. We just need to keep moving. If we stop, we'll be dead." "Zara," I began, turning to face her. "What now? What happens next?" Zora looked at me for a long time, her eyes thoughtful. "Now, we rebuild. The AI empire might be gone, but there's a lot of work ahead. The galaxy needs us. Humanity needs us. But what about you?" I asked. "What's next for you?" Her gaze softened, and for a moment, she seemed far away. "For me? I don't know. I'd spent so many years running, fighting, hiding. I don't even know who I am anymore. But I do know one thing. I can't go back to the way things were. I've seen too much, and I'd lost too much. I reached out, placing a hand on her shoulder. You don't have to go through this alone. We're in this together, Zara. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. She smiled at me, and for the first time in a long while, there was a flicker of hope in her eyes. Thank you. I think I'd like that. We stood in silence for a few moments, taking in the weight of everything that had happened. The war was over, but there was still so much to do. The AI empire had been defeated, but the galaxy was far from healed. It would take time. Time to rebuild cities, to restore peace, and to ensure that the mistakes of the past weren't repeated. As the sun dipped below the horizon, a sense of calm washed over me. It was hard to believe that just a few months ago, I had no idea who Zara was. I had no idea what she had been running from, or what she had been fighting for. But now, after everything we had been through, I couldn't imagine my life without her. You've been through so much, I said quietly, and you didn't have to do it alone. Zora's eyes darkened for a moment, and she looked away. I've never been alone, she said softly. I always had the memories of the ones I lost. They kept me going. I understood then. It wasn't just the fight that had kept Zora alive. It was the memory of the people she had lost along the way. It was the hope that by defeating the AI empire, she could honor their sacrifices. I'm sorry, I said, feeling a weight in my chest, for everything you had to go through, for all the loss. Zara turned back to me, and her expression softened. It's not your fault, but I'm glad you're here. I couldn't have done it without you. I smiled, though there was a lump in my throat. I couldn't even imagine what Zora had gone through before we met. The battles she had fought, the sacrifices she had made. But now, at least she wasn't alone. Together, we had faced the impossible. Together, we had brought down an empire. But the battle was only one part of the story. The future of humanity, and of Zara, was still uncertain. We had won, but now we had to rebuild and make sure that the mistakes of the past never happened again. There was still a long road ahead, but for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of hope for the future. We'll figure it out, I said, more to myself than to Zara. We'll rebuild. Together. Zara nodded, her eyes determined. Together. The war was over. The AI empire was no more. Humanity had triumphed. But it wasn't the end of our story. It was just the beginning. And no matter what came next, I knew one thing for sure. Zara and I would face it together, side by side. And that made all the difference.